Hey, this is Dominic, and this is your home for the cutting-edge conversations on optimizing your personal performance, lighting up your sex life, and living a purpose-driven life of your own design.
These are the topics that Dominic and I have both struggled with in our own lives and still don't always get right. This is Brian. Welcome to the Great Man Podcast.
In part one of our 101 Beginner's Guide to NFTs with Brad Barrett, we covered the basic definition of an NFT. Brad talked about how he went from a skeptic to a believer and now an outspoken enthusiast of NFTs and how they're going to revolutionize the world. We talked about the differences between Web 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0, and how your ability to understand trading cards and collectibles and what gives them value, and how the communities that love trading cards and collectibles give value to those things allow you to understand how NFTs work. So in this episode, we're going to continue the conversation, and Brad's going to share about why most experts believe that 99% of the NFTs that exist today will eventually go to zero. Because there's a lot of garbage out there. It's still the wild, wild west. And if you're feeling FOMO about not having invested in NFTs just yet, you're okay. And now's the time to educate yourself. We'll talk about why the future of NFTs belong to the creators, the artists of the world, and the communities that pop up and support those creative endeavors. Brad talks about smart contracts and gives you an intro-level guide to understanding smart contracts and how they have the ability to revolutionize ownership as well as wealth creation into the future. Brad is very outspoken about the risks of the NFT world and how he would say, no one is coming to save you if you fall prey to hackers or scammers, and what you need to do to safeguard your investments. Understanding a basic level definition of the difference between centralized and decentralized systems. And again, why it's okay to just learn right now and not feel the pressure of needing to jump in and invest right away or buy right away. I currently do not hold any NFTs in my possession. I am inching towards that starting line. And eventually, after I feel I've done enough education, I do plan on taking the plunge and investing in a prudent way. So here's the second episode of our two-part series on NFTs, 101 Beginner's Guide with Brad Barrett.
Vitalik Buterin, who is the creator of the Ethereum blockchain, he played World of Warcraft. He played it from 2007 to 2010, but decided to quit after Blizzard, the company, basically took away his beloved warlock's certain spell, right? And weakened his character unilaterally.
Yeah.
He said, I cried myself to sleep. And on that day, I realized what horrors centralized services can bring. And that's a little kind of crazy, but the important part there.
And when you say centralized, by the way, centralized, what does that mean there? That's an important point.
Yeah, well, I mean, Facebook is a perfect example. And this is not to rip on Facebook. Obviously, Facebook is useful in a lot of ways.
Brad, we've crossed that bridge. We're good.
I have a Facebook group, Choose If I does, with 80 some odd thousand people in it. I never fool myself that I own that for 1 second.
Right.
I never fool myself that Facebook couldn't take it away any next second that ever exists. And it could just poof off the face of the planet. And that is when you have one centralized authority making a decision unilaterally, they can do whatever they want. Whereas that simply does not exist in the Web3 world. We're so early in terms of the knowledge of this Web3 world. The video game community is one of the most closed off right now, mentally, to NFTs.
Interesting.
I cannot explain it. It's this weird Stockholm syndrome. It doesn't really make any sense. I think it's just misinformation, frankly, because to those of us that are outside of the video gaming world, this seems obvious. My daughter plays Minecraft all the time. And if she has one of the rarest, diamond swords or netherites or whatever, I'm trying to remember what she tells me. And there are only a couple of them that exist in the world. And she took hundreds or thousands of hours to find this or build it or whatever. That theoretically should have value.
That's right.
But it doesn't. It has no value to her, right? Unless somehow she could sell it in some weird backhand way. But she doesn't own it. There's no value to that. If that was an actual token, that specific sword, if that existed in the world and she owned it, nobody can come and take it from her because it's authenticated on the blockchain and she owns that, and she could sell it. She can do whatever. As the game gets more valuable, then that sword will increasingly add value, right? So it's in her best interest to help the game grow.
Yes.
You keep going down these examples of like, oh, what could you do? What could a community do? What could the great man mastermind or great man within community do? How could we make tokens that say like, in essence, I'm a card carrying member of this community,
right?
Because I put my money where my mouth is, or I put even not money, because it doesn't have to be money. It could be, hey, I did X. Like my daughter, again, going back to my daughter, she's a huge Olivia Rodrigo fan, like the singer, or any of us. I love Pearl Jam, or I went to 10 Billy Joel concerts growing up. What if instead of just having that little ticket, that paper ticket we used to get, saving that, and that was the end of it? Well, what if every time you went to a concert, that was an NFT and that was verified in the blockchain? And then in my case, Billy Joel or Pearl Jam could see that I went to 10 concerts. And what if that unlocked some aspect of membership in their community?
Yep.
When you get to 10 or 20 concerts, then they invite you to a members only concert at a tiny little venue where we can all hang out for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Well, you could do that now, right? You can do anything.
Yeah.
Kevin Rose, who's kind of famous in tech circles, he has a couple of podcasts called Modern Finance and Proof. He basically created a Web3, an NFT country club. He created a membership where he had 1,000 tokens. So 1,000 members potentially could be in this group. It's a gated group. The only way you can join it, the only way you could be a member of, it's called Discord. For anybody that has, it's another social platform, but it's called Discord. And the way that you can access Discord in this particular case, in his case, is you have to verify that you own his NFT, one of these 1,000. And then you get access to this gated country club. That sounds all well and good, but what he did was then he's adding layer upon layer of value into it, that only those 1,000 tokens and members get access to specific artists that are creating stuff just for them.
Yep.
Or a meetup in New York City or whatever it is. We're going to fly everybody to X place. It's these communities, and you can do anything. If you can dream it, you can do it. And what's cool, like in this case of this Proof NFT, this thing started, most of them sold for about 1 Ethereum. Because he's added so much value just in the last couple of months, they're now selling for like 40 Ethereum, which is $120,000. Like that's where this stuff can go.
In a few months.
In a few months. Yeah.
Right, I want to do one more comparison here back to like the centralized world versus this Web3 decentralized world. So in this case, what was his name? The guy that created
Kevin Rose?
Oh, Kevin Rose. Yeah.
Kevin Rose. Great. So isn't Kevin Rose the central owner of this? Isn't he it sounds like he's the decision maker. So how is this different than a centralized Facebook?
Well, people can always run away. It doesn't assume that he's going to do the right thing. He theoretically could have sold these tokens at the beginning, pocketed the money and ran. There's no verifiability that this guy is going to perform. Because he set them up this way, these are the ownership percentages of this community. What's really neat about the community growing and the value growing is what's built into these contracts. So when something is bought and sold, and I'll give this as an example, you build into the NFT contract whatever you want. That's what's cool. These are just computer codes. So you can build anything you want into a contract. Most of them have royalties on further sale that go back to the original owner. So like I said, he sold them for roughly 1 Ethereum each. So let's just say he sold each of these for 1 ETH each. And so we got 1,000 ETH pocketed originally. Okay. That's all well and good. That's a lot of money. That's, $3 million. They're now worth about 40 ETH. Now, most people build royalties into these where you get somewhere between 5 and 10% every time it's resold. So he's getting between 2 and 4 ETH every time somebody sells that forever. So it's actually in his interest to have this accrue as much value as possible, because every time it's resold, he gets another 12, 16 grand in real US dollars. And again, those people who are the holders of those, they get the vast majority of it, right? They get 90% of the upside. Incentives are aligned. But let's give a better example, because I don't think that is really going to hit home for people as much as, let's talk about artists.
Yeah, this is great. This is huge.
This is the key. let's talk about somebody like, I don't know, make somebody up, Monet or Van Gogh. So when Monet sold his first painting, or those paintings originally, I don't know if it was one franc or whatever, whatever it was, make it up. It was some nominal amount of money. Every time that painting gets resold for the rest of history over the intervening couple hundred years, and it's been sold for millions or tens of millions cumulative, Monet's heirs get zero.
Nothing.
Now imagine you have a smart contract. So you've tokenized the painting. Every time it gets sold, the smart contract executes, and Monet and his heirs get X%.
That's huge.
Right. This changes everything for artists.
Yeah.
For artists who have been, the struggling artists, the artists have to be poor. Artists don't have to be poor. They really don't. They can benefit forever. Not just that very first time that they sold to, pay the rent that month. If they're successful, they get it forever. And guys, we talked about you can build anything into a contract, right? So what if you want to really align incentives? What if the artist built into the contract, okay, when I sell this first, because that to him or her is really the most immediate money. Okay, so I built into this contract that I get a royalty on every subsequent sale. But what if I build in that the first owner also gets a royalty every subsequent sale for the next 100,000 years, for eternity? You can do that because you can build, if you can dream it, you can build it into a contract. Now, all the incentives are aligned. The holder of this, who may have been a wealthy person or whatever, like it's in their best interest to tell everybody about this and like raise the profile of this artist.
It's huge.
Because every time this sells down the line, they get a percentage of it.
Yes.
It changes everything.
Everything.
Like that.
And then this is why we hear that Web 3.0 NFTs are going to usher in the era of creators, like creators and communities. And this is why it's so important for our listeners to listen to this, because you could be approaching NFTs from a wide variety of perspectives, either as I want to be an investor in NFTs and build wealth, but it could also be like in creating or being a part of community. And Brad, when you're talking about this example of artists, like what do we hear about artists? Starving artists. And that example of Monet, like Monet's first few paintings when Monet is not famous are sold for a pittance, but those things are now worth tens of millions of dollars, and Monet gets none of that. The Monet's heirs get none of that. And we look at today, the examples, I think that Chris Dixon gave this example on Spotify, how Spotify released in 2021, they have about 8 million musicians on the Spotify platform. And 13,000 of those 8 million, 13,000 make over 50 grand on Spotify. Nothing, right? Like very few people, 13,000 out of 8 million make somewhat of a living wage on Spotify. We all love music. This is the example he gives. Like everybody loves music. We all listen to music. But musicians, for the most part, unless you are like the uber successful, everyone else is struggling to make life work. And so now we're starting to see that there's more creative ways where musicians, leveraging the power of their communities, can start to make more money. Gary Vee did something really cool. So what he did, because he grew up in our generation too, as a sports card collector, he's like, I understand rookie cards. I loved rookie cards. Those are the most valuable cards. What if we took musicians and we created rookie cards for them? Because he's got a particular way of finding talent before you know about these singers. So he scopes them out on Instagram and on YouTube and all the other places where they hang out. And he's like, these are the who's next generation. And so we're going to put a class of 20 who's next musicians. And we're going to create an NFT for each of those musicians that they own. They get to own that NFT. We'll take a little stake for creating the NFT and creating this catalog of 20 musicians, but we're not taking any of their royalties. We're not taking any of their music, like anything that they sell is all of theirs, 100%. We're not taking anything out of their pocket. We're creating additional value by creating this NFT. And now anyone who wants to buy a part of this NFT, because Brian's got a burgeoning singing career. I've seen him sing. I believe in him. I'm now incentivized to blow him up. I'm going to share him everywhere. I'm going to put him on every playlist. I'm going to tell everybody about Brian. And therefore, my stake in the NFT goes up. Brian's stake in NFT goes up. Anyone who's in a community that loves Brian's music goes up. And now the wealth that's created from that community goes to everyone who was a part of Brian's success. Most importantly, Brian gets the largest share of all of that. That's how we start to kind of balance out this inequity around starving artists.
And think about all the industries that just that example completely disrupts. How music is made, how it's distributed,
Totally.
how the listener listens to it, the finances behind the entire thing, even influencer marketing, right? Whereas before there's like, hey, we'll give you a free product, we'll give you a 10% off, but now it's completely different because you have part ownership in it.
That's right.
And I think, Brad, like going back to some of our original topics in this podcast, like, well, what got you interested in it? Now we've got a really good understanding of the utility of this and how it can disrupt significant current companies and products.
Yeah, it really is wild. And you're starting to see, it's just right now, it's experimentation. A lot of these artists and creators are trying to figure this out. And again, this is why I said, like at the beginning, I have no idea what this is going to look like 10 years from now. Nobody does, because it could go one of a trillion different ways. And people might experiment with things that we can't even foresee right now. But I know how exciting this is. I know how many people, when they first start hearing about this, are like, wow, this is incredible. What can I dream of? That's just a cool place to be mentally, is like, what can I dream of? And again, like going back to that 1,000 true fans, Dom, you described it perfectly with the music. You have a lot of those like snobby kind of losers who are like, oh, I love that band back when they were playing clubs of 100 people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Now you can prove it. Now you can prove it with that.
Right. And now you're not the snobby jerk who just wants them to be like you to have insider access. You actually want to spread it.
Right.
Because maybe you helped them grow at the beginning. Maybe you bought 0.1% of their first album and helped them. And then you can directly benefit from their success.
That's right.
It changes the game. Dom, I had sent you something yesterday about, there's this platform called Royal. I think it's royal.io.
Okay.
They're a music platform where you can buy little pieces of people's songs. So I think the artist Nas is the biggest high profile person who's released on there. But there was this woman, I think it was Verite, who released a song yesterday. And it's cool because you can buy, like they have different levels. You can get like 0.05% of the ownership for like $100. And then like the gold level or the next level up is like, you could talk to her, like, or you get a one-on-one conversation with her, and you not only own it in theory, because that sounds cute, but like you actually get royalties.
Yep.
You actually own that song. So if this song becomes popular, this can be an income stream for you forever.
Yep.
It reminds me a little bit of Kickstarter, but with ownership.
Yeah.
Here's all the creators doing something. You can get in on this, but instead of getting a t-shirt, you get ownership and maybe a t-shirt.
And maybe a t-shirt too. But yeah, I think we've done like an amazing job of, if I do say so myself, the three of us here combined, of trying to explain why this is important. But I think it's also critical to say, like, where are we now?
Right.
And I think this is part of why people first learn about this, maybe might stop. Again, similar to like that misinformation or closed-mindedness of the video gamers. For a lot of us, okay, I've heard about this NFT thing. I want to learn about it. And then you go to OpenSea and you see like pictures of monkeys being sold for like $50,000
Right.
or $200,000. And like, it seems insane.
Right.
I think it's really critical to understand that NFTs are not JPEGs. They're not pictures.
Right.
What most people getting into NFTs right now think of as NFTs are JPEGs, because that's where the money is right now.
Right.
A lot of that is community. And, this picture of monkeys, like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, as crazy as that sounds, that is a very powerful community. And they are one of the few that have transcended just these pictures. But a lot of this in the current NFT world of buying and selling pictures is just pure speculation. It is speculation of the worst degree of just, hey, the greater fool theory. Can I find a greater fool to sell this to for more money than I bought it for?
Right.
And so let's make no mistake that is what is the vast majority of what's going on right now, and why most people are closed-minded to this. It seems ridiculous. It is ridiculous. There's no value to it, to most of it. And 99% of these things are going to go to zero.
Yep.
And the reason why is because they're complete BS.
Yeah.
It's made up. They got somebody on Fiverr to draw them a couple drawings and then sell it to 10,000 suckers who can hopefully resell them to 10,000 more suckers.
Yeah. Let's hit a few of these quick hit items, Brad, what you just said to maybe close out this conversation, because as people are like, okay, well, we've listened to this conversation. I'm starting to get an understanding of the potential of NFTs. I understand it belongs to creators and communities. I'm kind of excited about it. Where do I go now? And some of the things that were helpful for me to hear, one of them was exactly what you just said. 99% of the NFTs that exist right now are most likely going to go to zero. I think that's what the smart money, the smart people are saying. One of the other things that I heard, I can't remember if it was Chris Dixon or someone else, who said the most valuable NFTs 5 years from now have not been created yet. Meaning that, like, if people are afraid of, oh my God, I haven't invented, or I haven't invested yet, am I going to miss it? It's like, well, if you think about the earliest iterations of the internet, like MySpace and some of the other things that came out first, needed to get some of the garbage out of the way for the other things to get built. So that gave me a sense of calm and like, okay, I'm not missing the boat yet. One of the other great pieces of advice that I've heard is the best thing to do now is to just educate yourself and to go, like, to get excited about the journey and get excited about the ride. Like, I know that when I started listening to these kinds of podcasts around NFTs and blockchain and crypto and Web 3.0, it was really overwhelming for me at first. We're going to put together a list of, like, Brad had given me a series of podcasts to listen to that I think are the best of the best in terms of where to take your journey from here. I think I'll put 3 to 5 episodes in there, but it's been really helpful for me to realize that, and I don't own any NFTs right now, that I don't have to just yet. I'm not ready to put my money in. I'm still educating myself, and that feels okay. I'm getting closer. But Brad, based on, if you're talking to an audience of beginners who have just listened to this entire conversation, are there any other tidbits like the ones that I just shared that you would want to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I think this is really not, in the current incarnation, it is not investing, though people are making money, again, with that speculation of the selling it. If you think of this currently, again, 99+% as investing, you're going to lose your money. So please, please, please hear me and do not put money into this thinking it's a get rich quick scheme. You most likely are going to end up with $0. Okay. So please understand, this is a technology that very likely will change the world. And you want to be ahead of that curve.
Yep.
You want to be educated. So when the time comes that you can use all of your built up life experience and financial acumen, as it may be, and whatever resources you have available potentially to invest, when you see something interesting, well, then you can make that decision. I don't think you can learn as much as you need to with $0 right now. I think you can learn 90% of it, but there is some aspect of getting in there and just understanding the mechanics.
Great point.
Even just understanding, like, okay, I have to, as an American citizen, I have to go to a Coinbase or a Gemini and link up my bank account and verify who I am, and then buy some Ethereum or whatever cryptocurrency. And then, this is going to get too in the weeds, but like, there are these little steps of like, okay, I've got to move that cryptocurrency to my MetaMask wallet, and again, way outside the scope of this. And then I've got to buy this. But what Brian said before we recorded, and what I do want to leave is, this is right now the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
Security is a massive concern. And one of the beauties to a lot of people of the blockchain is that it is decentralized and it is purely you. So there's no like big brother or daddy entity that's going to save you. If your credit card gets stolen right now and somebody charges $100,000 on it, you're liable for, I think, $50 is the most that you could possibly be liable for. And even that, most of the time, you're going to pay $0. That's because we have regulations around this. There are laws, et cetera. There's somebody to safeguard the public at large. Now, with the blockchain, you are on your own, my friend.
Yeah,
okay?
that's
so
huge.
if, like, literally the very first time that I sent Ethereum on the blockchain, it was frightening. I would have been scared to see what my heart rate was at that moment. because I copied a 42 character address, which is what the Ethereum address is. And I sent it to this random address. I was like, well, damn, I have no idea if this is real or if this is going to work or if I screwed it up or if I added an extra space or like whatever. Like,
right.
So you need to educate yourself. You can do this very small. That's again, the beauty also of the blockchain is you could send 1/1,000,000th of an Ethereum and just as a test, or 1/1,000,000th or 100 millionth of a Bitcoin. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So I'm not saying $0, but pretty close to zero you could do and still get the hang of this, because it's hard right now. You have to do a lot of steps. And also because there's nobody there to safeguard you, there are lots of predators.
Yeah.
So there are lots of fraudsters. There are lots of people who are going to send you DMs. And now most of this world, and guys, I'm not a big fan of Twitter previously, but most of this Web3 world is occurring on Twitter and this Discord that I mentioned before.
Yep.
Basically, scam artists and predators are going to send you direct messages with links in there. Like, oh, get an early access to this, just click here. It's a fraud 100% of the time. Don't ever click on links. Like, use your smart discerning habits of just normal internet. Be smart. Don't click on links. Make sure you verify specifically where you're going. Make sure the website you're at is the one. Like in the case of your wallets, again, and that's a term that's a little outside the scope of this, but like where you hold your cryptocurrency and your NFTs, safeguard your password like it's Fort Knox, or like the words that are used to like get access to that. Literally safeguard it like it's Fort Knox. Because if anybody got access to that, like if you store it on your phone, oh, I'm going to keep it on my phone. Well, the phone is connected to the internet. Somebody could theoretically hack into that and all your stuff is gone. So just use the utmost of caution, because you just have to be safe. Don't ever click on anything. Don't ever give anybody your password, because if they get into that, all your stuff is gone in under a minute. They can move it all out and it's gone. So there's nobody riding to save you. This is important. I know it sounds like I'm probably playing this up a little bit here, but it's really, really, really important.
It's important.
Brad, there's been nobody on this podcast yet that has taken us to such highs during a podcast and such lows of warnings. And I appreciate it, because you're right. It's important to understand it and what the potential is, and to understand that this is not a Apple product that we're used to turning on and things are connecting, right? It is not that yet.
I mean, I listened to podcasts and studied for hundreds upon hundreds of hours before I even felt confident to move forward. That's me. I'm a little anxious of a person and wanted to make sure I have my ducks in a row. I don't think that's required. For many people out there, those podcasts you're going to list, episode 542 of the Tim Ferriss Show is like an absolute must listen.
Yeah.
Tom Bilyeu, who I think we're all fans of here at Impact Theory, he is talking about NFTs and the world-changing possibilities of it. He's a guy that I've trusted for almost a decade. Gary Vee is another person I've trusted for forever. When you start seeing the smartest people in the room all saying the same thing, man, you got to pay attention.
Yeah, you really do. And I think Chris Dixon was the guy who said he's another person who I didn't know before you sent episode 542 on the Tim Ferriss podcast, but he's someone who's really demystified the NFT space, crypto, Web 3.0 for me. He said, there's not a single person that I've come across who's well educated about this space, who has skepticism around the future of this. That gave me that sense of Tim Ferriss on 542. He says, every 7 or 8 years, I get an idea or I hear about something that keeps me awake at night because it's so exciting. And I haven't had one of these in 7 or 8 years or a decade until I started hearing about NFTs and, Web 3.0 and all the people that we look up to. I think you said that, Brad. Smart people, meticulously thoughtful people are really, really getting behind this. And so what's really cool about this, man, is when the internet was being birthed into this world, there was a handful of people who were in an inner circle that were bringing that into the universe. But now, because we have the internet, because we have podcasts, because we have distribution of information that's much more accessible, we're actually at that table. We are in that inner circle getting to hear how the decisions are being made while they're being made. We get to participate in it versus catching up to it a decade later. This is really exciting because I get to feel like I'm much closer to the action in its infancy, and I can put my own impact on that with our communities. Brad, we're already talking about it in the Great Man Mastermind. What do we want to build together? We've got a community. We can create something. We've already got a laundry list of ideas. I know you've been talking to our resident magician, Giuseppe, about some of the stuff that we're cooking up that has legs. So it's a really exciting time. And that's where I want to leave a listener, because I've left a lot of other podcasts feeling confused. I want to leave our listeners excited to learn more about where this is going, how you can participate, and where to go next. So, Brad, you've been amazing. Thank you. I think we've accomplished everything that we set out to at the very beginning of this. And do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to impart upon our audience before we head off?
Yeah, I mean, this is just incredibly exciting. Somebody like Tim Ferriss, he's worth probably a couple $100 million. He doesn't need to spend his time doing this for any monetary gain, but It's just so exciting, right? It's like once you see it, you really can't unsee it, because then it is truly whatever the mind can think about, you theoretically could create. And that's just so cool. Like, what if there was insider access to your favorite restaurant? Like the funny example that I always use is like that ridiculous McRib at McDonald's is like, this cult classic. People drive for hundreds of miles to get their McRib at like that one place. What if there was a McRib NFT? Right. 100,000 people in the world, or 10,000, are the only people that could ever buy a McRib. And like they got a special table at every McDonald's that was in the back by like the manager or something.
There were so many good examples on this podcast, Brad, and we ended with McRib. I mean, God bless.
But I know it sounds crazy, but think about anything that exists. You're walking through some digital universe because you're an insider to that. A special door appears that is only there for you.
Right.
Where does it go?
It goes wherever you can dream it could go, right?
A bunch of other lovers of McRibs, and now you get to hang out with your people.
Damn it, we're back.
Yeah. Compare the recipe of the different barbecue sauces. But I have no freaking idea 10 years from now what this is going to look like. But I am as close to certain. I've never been more certain about anything in my whole life that this is going to change the world. And I'm just so excited about that. I just find it fascinating.
Just a reminder that in the show notes, we have 4 podcast episodes linked as additional resources to continue your education around NFTs. These 2 interview series with Brad Barrett was purely a beginner's level discussion, an intro guide to the NFT space. But in the show notes, there are probably about 4 or 5 hours worth of content from experts like Naval Ravikant and Chris Dixon, and investors in the space like Tim Ferriss, the Bankless Podcast, which Brad and I both love, that give you a really deep and rich understanding of cryptocurrency, blockchain, the NFTs. These are the 4 handpicked episodes that I would encourage you to listen to next. If these 2 interviews with Brad really started to get your wheels turning, those are in the show notes, and enjoy. Hey, did you get something of value out of this podcast? If so, I'm going to ask you a favor. Would you be so amazing as to go over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and a review? Your ratings and reviews can show someone who's just discovered our podcast for the first time that we are worth listening to. And that way we can reach a wider audience. So please head over to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating and review. You rock.